You're live, Chairman. Thank you very much.
Good evening and welcome to this Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting as the Crime and Disorder Committee on Thursday the 27th of February. My name is Councillor Simon Morgan and I am the Chairperson of this committee. Members, we are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting you are giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Could I ask members to avoid approaching the top table, as this could create interference with the cameras and the live stream. Please note that the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent upon the correct use of the microphones. Therefore, can I ask that when invited to speak, you remember to turn on your microphone and turn it off when finished. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. Members, before proceeding further, I'm sure we all wish to express our deep regret at the loss of one of our members, Councillor Shaughnessy, who very prematurely died recently, and our condolences go out to her family. And could I ask that we stand for a short period in respect. Thank you, members. Right, moving on to item 2, apologies for absence. May I have apologies for absence, please, Committee Clerk?
Oh, yes, Chairman. Thank you very much. Apologies been received from Councillor Neal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 3, minutes of the last meeting, which were held on the 10th of October 2024 and were found on pages 5 to 8. Can I ask that these are approved as a true and accurate record? I so move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Spenceley. Members, is that agreed by consent? Agreed. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 4, declarations of interest. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for Members. Members are reminded that they are also required to disclose any such interest as soon as they become aware should the need arise through the meeting. Are there any declarations? No, thanks. Item 5, public participation. I'm assuming there's been no requests made for public participation, Tara?
That's right, Chairman. We've got no requests. Thank you.
Okay. Then we move on to item 6, the police performance update. And I'd like to welcome Inspector Girdleston.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me all right. I know I'm going to stand if that's all right, just to help with the presentation. So good evening, elected members, Chair. My name is Sam Girdlestone, and up until today I've been the Community Policing Team Inspector for the Chelmsford and Maldon District. I'm happy to introduce my replacement, who's Inspector Emily Holmes, who's taken over from today. And both Emily and I are here to present on Essex Police's performance in the Maldon area on behalf of Chief Inspector Paul Ballard, who's on leave today. Thank you. Whoever's controlling the slides, if we could just move over to the next page for me, please. Thank you ever so much. So just to give you a breakdown in relation to the policing resources and response that you have dedicated to your area. As explained, Paul Ballard is the district commander for the area. He does cover both Chelmsford and Maldon, and that comes under the geographical policing area for our district. That has a dedicated response team of police officers. There's 5 of those shifts. that work from obviously this building in Maldon, and they obviously cover the whole area. That's complemented and supported by the community policing team, which is predominantly my team, and they are based from the Chelmsford City Council Community Safety Hub, but also now at their own dedicated hub here, supporting obviously the local policing team here as well. And we work together with our colleagues obviously from Maldon District Council towards the local priorities which are set through the Safety Partnership. Thank you. Next slide, please. So just to break down my team's makeup then, so the new inspector is Emily Holmes, as obviously we've explained. We have a number of sergeants spread across 4 different teams. So from the Chelmsford hub, but they do obviously cover this area, is Sergeant Sarah Jeans, Sergeant Charlotte Lawrence, their team of officers, and police community support officers as well. So we've got 16 PCs and 4 PCSOs spread across those teams. But then that's also supported by the dedicated town centre teams, one for Chelmsford City, but also then obviously for the Maldon Town team. And they're supervised by Sergeant Graham Thomas and Sergeant Matt Dolby. Again, both of those teams have 6 police constables and 3 police community support officers. I suppose at this point I will mention the fact that obviously it's been quite prevalent in the news recently. The role of the police community support officers was subject to obviously funding, and I won't obviously delve into the politics around all that, but obviously there was a lot of questions that were asked in relation to actually can we still function in the way that we are, and the Chief Constable obviously made the representations as he did. At this point in time, I just want to reinforce and just support you in the fact that nothing is changing at this point. The funding is there, and we believe that obviously we've got the resources in place to keep those community support officers to be able to support you. And I will come on to the good work that they do and are able to provide across the district for you. We also have a dedicated team of community safety engagement officers. That's a specific role which is quite specialist in as much as engaging with some of our harder to reach communities, and a lot of work is done with our tri-services officers here in Maldon and in the Dengie with those harder to reach communities, and a lot of good work is done there, and I've got some examples to share with you. As well as that, we have a number of officers which are dedicated to being supporting child and young persons. They do a lot of work with the schools network, particularly obviously here in Plume, Ormiston Academy over in Burnham-on-Crouch, and again I've got further examples to share with you in a moment. Thank you. Next slide, please. So all of our work and focus then, everything focuses around the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner's priorities, which are obviously set and reviewed, and that then influences our response through the Chief Constable and the Force Plan, which has obviously been recently reviewed and updated. There's obviously lots of information within the Force Plan, but to break it down within that central circle which is provided of investigating, preventing and responding to crime, there's a number of specific offences within there which the team are responding to. But the overarching objective of the team always is to help people, keep people safe and catch criminals. And I've got lots of examples again to share with you as where the team are constantly driving and performing in that way. And then a key focus for all of them is that focus upon victims, vulnerability, visibility and violence, and driving that down. Thank you. Next slide, please. So just some data then, which I want to go through with you just in relation to the performance for Essex Police as a whole, but then specifically for Maldon. Crime is down across the force, and crime is down in Maldon. Through the last year, and the latest data that's been provided to us from the Police Fire Crime Commissioner's Office is up to December, so you've got that calendar year of how we've performed in 2024 compared to 2023. And you can see that all crime is down across the force by 6.7%, and antisocial behaviour is down by 3.1%. Specifically, crime in Maldon is down by 6.6%, but antisocial behaviour is actually up, and that's up by 12.7%. However, there is context around all of this. When you break down the actual figures in relation to what that looks like, it's actually 28 offences which have been recorded above what we had from the year before in relation to antisocial behaviour. And I can explain that that's down to a number of isolated incidents in some of our rural communities of neighbour disputes where there was multiple reports of one neighbour blaming one another about constant antisocial behaviour, which has seen that spike and rise. But the team are working hard to try and obviously drive that down. What I will just highlight though from the data which is provided is that the solved rate for solved outcomes for crimes is good. There's a very much improving picture in relation to that. We are solving more crime, and that goes against the trend of the force average. Maldon is a good outlier for that, and it shows that it's performing well in that area. Lovely. Next slide, please. Thank you. So one area which I will explain to you, which has been of concern to us, is public confidence, and a survey is pushed out to members of the public to complete. It's a random survey of 100 people, and that tries to get a look and feel as to how Essex Police are performing generally, but also specifically if you are a victim of crime. And there's a number of areas which are highlighted within this document. And Chair, are we able to share this with those that want to? Is this something that this is a document that we'd be able to share with them if they needed to?
Well, yes. I mean, I think it's not going to be possible to do it now.
No, that's
but
fine.
if you'd like to send us the slides, then please.
Certainly. So if there is that further context, people want around some of those specifics. Obviously, we can go into that in a bit more detail. But essentially, confidence in relation to a good response from Essex Police is down by 5%. It was at 70% for the year before, and it's now at 65%. So there is work to be done there, and we've set a number of improvement plans to try and obviously pick that up and deal with it. It's at this point now I would like to highlight that actually for the whole county, for the whole force, Maldon, with the exception of Stansted Airport, has the lowest recorded crime. It's an incredibly safe place to live, and recorded crime compared to other areas is low and very good, and we do keep that down. Of course, if you are a victim of crime, you're not going to feel that way, and you know, you're going to want far more done to support people and make sure it doesn't happen at all. But context is everything, perhaps, when you have to look at some of the figures and the detail which is there. Thank you. Next slide, please. Just another area in relation to this which I would highlight is that also further figures of recent legislation, crime recording has had an effect. For example, in relation to sexual offences, harassment and stalking, there has been a change to legislation now with the revenge porn legislation which has been introduced. We've actually had to reclassify and re-record a number of areas, which has seen a spike and a bit of a rise. But that is something to be expected, and again, context is everything in relation to that. Thank you. Next slide, please. I've probably covered this one off really, but to reiterate again, Maldon is seeing a good reduction in crime. It is one of the areas of the county with the lowest crime rate that is shown. We have seen that spike and increase in antisocial behaviour, a 12% increase, but that again is in relation to those isolated incidents which the team have been dealing with to try and obviously put good measures in place there to prevent it. But overall, there has been a steep decline in antisocial behaviour since August 2024, and that continues. So we'd like to think upon the next meeting that this would be a vastly more improved picture. There are some other outliers, and the next slide will show that in a bit more detail. But offences, for example, of dwelling burglary has dropped. Offences of theft of motor vehicle has dropped, albeit theft from motor vehicle has gone up. So there are some nuances in relation to all of that, which I'll explain. Next slide, please. Thank you. So again, it's an overload of information I appreciate on the screen, which you can see, but just some of those areas which are highlighted in red and the figures specific to the offence type are the ones for concern and conversation, really. So, for example, you can see as you go down the list on the left-hand side, the offence of robbery. As you then look at that, as you go over to the right, you can see that that's then increased by 11.1%. But again, context is everything. Actually, we've had one more offence compared to the year before, whereas the year 2023 we had 9 offences. This year we've had 10. In relation to burglary, residential non-dwelling, again you can see an increase there of 3.4%. That's one additional offence compared to the year before. But then there are a couple of outliers. So theft from a vehicle, 41.9%. Theft from a person, 42.9%. And the offence of shoplifting, 31%. The cost of living crisis has had an effect, and that is seen nationally. But there has been a focus here for the team in relation to a lot of this offending that we've had to put some real significant plans in place to try and deal with it. So again, I'll come on to those examples in a moment, but we had a real trend of offending, particularly theft from motor vehicles in the Woodham Walter, Woodham Mortimer and the Heybridge area, with somebody that was a prolific offender committing a load there. But we managed to put quite a good response to that, and a prosecution followed. I'll come on to that in a bit more detail in a moment. In relation to shoplifting, yeah, there's a problem there, and we need to be supporting our businesses a bit more carefully and give that some further attention. I'll come on to the work that's done by other teams shortly, but we have a dedicated business crime team that work with businesses to explain to them how they can put target hardening measures in place to try and support their staff better with security, better CCTV infrastructure, things like that. But then equally, my team need to be busy in those shops, in those premises, to prevent this from ever happening. And when we get those prolific offenders, they need to be making sure that arrests and prosecutions are followed up as quickly as possible. So those plans are in place too. The other highlighted ones, as we discussed, was antisocial behaviour and also criminal damage. You can see there's a spike there of 3.7% and an increase of 10 offences too. And that was due to a crime series in the Burnham-on-Crouch area, which the team have progressed and dealt with. Thank you. Next slide, please. I will just reiterate, if there are any questions, please feel free to throw them out. You will have an opportunity at the end, but if there's something burning, then obviously please do say so. Just to help, I suppose, with a bit more detail around where the offending is happening. This is an overview of crime hotspots since the beginning of the year, so the 1st of January. And you can see there's been a total of 189 offences that have been recorded on our systems. Two immediate areas were highlighted to me as I opened up this mapping overview, and that was centred around Maldon Town and Heybridge, and then also in the Burnham-on-Crouch area. And as you can see, there was a total of 57 crimes in Maldon and a total of 26 crimes in Burnham-on-Crouch. A vast majority of this offending is offences such as domestic abuse, which we have, again, specialist and dedicated teams dealing with those. The two main schools, again, Ormiston and the Plume School, count for a large proportion of some of these too. But as you can also see, there is obviously that shotgun effect of offences spread throughout the entire district, right out in the Dengie and all the various villages and whatnot supporting the district too. And it's important that team are visible in those places and preventing as much of these crimes as possible. Thank you. Next slide, please. So vehicle crime then, as I explained, theft of motor vehicle has dropped, but the offence of theft from motor vehicle has been a problem for us. So an example which is shared within here is the work that the team have done to identify the person responsible that was committing the offences across the area. There was a specific trend of where it was seen that that person was smashing car windows to gain access to it and then steal from within. At the same time, also committing petrol thefts, making off without payment as they're recorded as. And the team did a big problem-solving approach with the City Council and the dedicated antisocial behaviour officers to support them with that. Did lengthy CCTV inquiries and identified the person responsible. He was arrested, prosecuted. I'm not sure on the sentencing as yet, as I don't believe they've actually been disposed of as courts yet, at quarters of yet. But that was a good result for the team to obviously bring this person to justice. Big part of that force plan that I talked about at the beginning is that whole investigate, respond, and prevent. So those preventative measures that the team need to do and properly educate members of the public around what they can do to look after themselves. The team have worked really closely with the council and the safety partnership to look at crime preventative measures. They've done a number of days of action. Obviously the one that's explained there on the 19th of February at Plantation Hall, we had a number of people come to see us about what they can do with crime preventative measures, and they spent a lot of time educating, doing bike marking schemes and all sorts of other things to look after their property and to talk about some of the issues they may have experienced. Lovely. Next slide, please. Speeding. I would probably say that speeding complaints are the biggest issue that's highlighted to me, and I know is a great concern to a lot of your residents and to the elected members. So the team work hard to try and tackle with this and deal with it. working really closely with the road policing teams, with the district council and those that are trained in TrueCam to properly try and tackle this issue and the fatal four of those other offences which are linked to speeding to try and really drive this down. They do a number of speed checks daily across the district. Cox Clark particularly was an outlier, and a lot of work has been done there recently with the local residents to properly deal with that. And unfortunately the geography of the area doesn't help, going from those national speed limits through those obviously quiet villages into a 30, then into a national again, and people take that chance to roar through it. And obviously that's not acceptable with young children walking through, and any member of the public. We need to obviously try to prevent that as much as possible. So we've had some real key plans put in place to try and deal with this effectively. A innovative idea is to work with local schools and actually get the school children to work with the team to do some of the speed checks, and then actually we invite them to talk to the drivers about some of the speeding that they've seen, and actually you're going this fast in this mile-an-hour area. That's quite impactful, and obviously might be deemed a little bit controversial, but we've had some positive feedback as a result of that, and we welcome it. I can share with you that on the 19th of February, we had a dedicated day of action in the Haybridge area, but the team concentrated in the villages surrounding that as well. 46 tickets were issued for speeding on that day alone, 2 arrests for drug driving, and a number of vehicles were seized for insurance too. So we understand that this is a big concern for you. Please be reassured that we are listening to those concerns and trying to put meaningful plans in place to deal with it. However, what I need from you, please, is to always report. If you have concerns in relation to speeding in a certain area, and there's things that we can be doing to try and deal with that for you, please talk to us and let us know so that we can put this sort of response in place to make sure that we drive it down. Any questions in relation to that at all, if I pause at this point? Yeah, of course. Sorry, Chair, is that all right?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, talking about TrueCam, I see in the report here it says that TrueCam is currently being delivered across 18 parishes, which is half our parishes. Are there plans to deliver it across the others? I just wondered how those ones were selected, and how do I get my parish on the list if it's not there already? Do we have a list of them?
Certainly, I don't believe there's any restrictions to it whatsoever. If you have concerns for speeding in your parish, please let us know. My team are certainly in a position to be able to support you with that, but certainly the council, the community safety officers that we work with that are trained in TrueCam can deliver that function too, so we can obviously ask them to support that as well. The only difficulty that comes upon occasion is the 20 mile/hour speed limit zones. There is an anomaly with that around chief officer guidance, where we can't support prosecutions with those, and that's a bit of a difficult area for us to work through at the moment to try and deal with that, because I know obviously we've had the improvements in relation to Market Hill as where there's been done, for example. However, not obviously putting you on the spot, but if your village has got a particular problem with speeding, please talk to us, let us know where it is, and I'll make sure my team support you with it. All right, sorry, Chair.
Yes, I'm a member of the Wickham Bishop Speed Watch group, and it's become apparent that where we catch vehicles speeding which are registered outside of Essex, no letters are then sent to the owners of those, which seems to be rather a sort of bit of a waste of time. Is that, can we change that policy? I
suppose personally, I'd say, yeah, let's send them a letter. I'd be more than happy that we do that. If you're speeding through any village or district, then we need to make you aware that you're fortunate you haven't been ticketed and prosecuted this time. I suppose, though, I dare say that the message behind it is that if it's a person that's coming through that area regularly, that they're highlighted. If you come through here again, this is what's going to happen, and you're going to be prosecuted, and that's going to be followed up. So if it's that person that's out of area, that's travelled through that one occasion and then never to come back again, I suppose in that sense it's almost a bit fruitless. But personally, I'd be more than happy that we support that.
I mean, it's not necessarily because they're travelling through. These are vehicles registered.
Like a hire car or something. I
Yes,
suppose.
exactly.
Yeah,
So they could actually, the people driving them probably could be Essex residents.
and I think I welcome that, and I'm sure we can put plans in place to support that and to make sure that actually that's a necessary.
Where would be the best place to sort of initiate?
I would bow to Spencer's knowledge on some of this, but equally, I'm more than happy that we could put our name behind that to support you with it. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Spencer.
Well, I'm probably going to surprise no one because I said I'd bring it up every time, but we have, and I don't want to make it too parochial, but as you're asking for the areas that we know and represent. So in my particular parish, there is a problem with the North Haybridge Garden suburb development on Broad Street Green Road, where the new roundabout is on Broad Street Green Road. I would say to officers, walk down the footpath and you'll find there really isn't one. It's a very, very, very narrow piece of road. There's only pavement on one side, if you can call it pavement, and it's a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. We did get some cameras down there and found that some of the, I don't know when they went, but they found they were going at 38, and of course that was fine, because it's not fine, because if a child gets hit at 38 miles an hour, yes. So I just think I'd really appreciate the police perhaps speaking to Highways about that situation, because it really is quite unacceptable. And what's happening at the local primary school is they're now completely overwhelmed with people taking the children to school by car, because there is no other way for them to get to school on foot. The other one I will mention, and I think Adam Pipe won't forgive me if I don't mention it, is Holloway Road. And he's one of my neighbours, and I live on that road myself, and it is there are real problems there. But what tends to happen, and it is quite worrying, is it's used a bit like a racetrack, particularly overnight. So we're hearing quite a lot of cars.
What speed limit is Holloway Road? Sorry.
So Holloway Road.
Limit? Do you know what speed limit is?
What speed? 30, sorry, 30, yes, sorry. I couldn't hear that, sorry. 30 miles an hour. And yes, they go a lot faster. In fact, there are other members in this room who've picked me up from outside my house who would verify that they go a lot faster, especially in the evenings and overnight. So it's just something to draw your attention to, really, because it is a major cut through.
Yeah,
so.
And for those that don't know, Adam Pipe is obviously our head of road policing, and Spencer and I speak with him quite frequently about areas of concern and what we can put in place to try and tackle that and deal with it effectively. What I will always say is report. If you've got real public concerns in relation to that, please let us know about it, and we'll make sure we put meaningful actions in there. Don't get me wrong, you've told us now. So we will make sure that the team are aware of that and put those relevant checks in. Just touch upon the point in relation to highways and the 40-mile-an-hour zone. Spencer and I have lived this issue, I'm afraid, certainly for my last 2 years in relation to certain areas, and it's incredibly difficult at times to know the differences between obviously district council responsibility, county council responsibility, and then highways, and how we can put plans in place to support significant change and meaningful action to try and make those improvements, really. I'm more than happy that 40-mile-an-hour speed limit zones, of course, we can go to those locations and do relevant speed checks. In relation to the road furniture and the footpaths that children obviously can't now walk down, that is a highways responsibility. Of course, we will support any argument to say that we need to make those improvements for public safety, but they need to be brought to the table to have those conversations and discussions. My last point, sorry, would be, I've lost my train of thought now. Sorry, go ahead.
Really sorry about that. No, it was just to make you aware that, I mean, Highways are very aware of this situation with Broad Street Green Road. It's been a bit of a failure, really, in the way that the planning progressed, in that the exits onto the main estate didn't happen, the pedestrian walkways, so the cut-throughs, if you like. So the only way for the children to get to school is down this road. And I know that Highways are looking at repairing that path, but I've actually had it fed back to me that Highways want to keep that road at that speed because of traffic coming into Maldon, even though you've got a development there of what will be 1,600 houses in total. So it's a real point of concern. So it's just really about asking you to keep your eyes on that situation as much as you can.
Of course we can. And again, please get that reassurance that in relation to those speeding complaints, I'll make sure that we put those actions in place to do those relevant speed checks for my team, but also with the TrueCam checks that we can do with the council. The other point that I was going to come on to and mention is in relation to making those changes with Highways and Essex County Council. It seems ridiculous, but if it's a KSI site, a killed or serious injury location, that adds a lot of weight to those changes being made, which seems horrific to think that somebody has to be killed or seriously injured for somebody to be listened to. However, the website which I would encourage people to look at to add strength to their argument is something called TraffWeb, which is a website that Essex County Council run, but that is data which is provided by us. And with that website, you can type in any road location, and that will come up with mapping of where a collision has taken place, what degree of injury it has been, so that if I get complaints such as this, one of the first things I do is I refer to that. Well, I can see we've had a serious injury collision in December 24. We've had a fatal collision in May 2023. Yeah, I've got real concerns about this, and my team have also done a number of speed checks and have prosecuted 50 drivers or something along those lines. So using that data which is available is another good source of information.
Thank you.
All right, lovely. Sorry, apologies, Chair.
Councillor Thompson, do you have a question?
Thank you. I was going to ask about non-crime hate incidents, and forgive me, it might have been on the slides, but I'm afraid I can't read them. So my next question is, could we possibly have them in advance by email, presumably?
It's a note.
Because I know I'm sitting about as far away as I could, but to be honest, I wouldn't be able to see it unless I was right eyeball to eyeball.
I've already made that note.
No problem at all. I've got a couple more slides to go through, and then we'll come on to that point at the end. Is that all right? In relation to those incidents? Yeah, lovely.
Thanks.
Apologies.
Councillor Morley, do you want to?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming. You were saying about response times. Do you think, I mean, how is the ratio of personnel rather, I should say, as regards the planning? Is there a ratio that you look at or work to? Because obviously your response times isn't going to improve if they're more population. So do you have a ratio that you work to at all, please?
There will be science behind that, certainly. I'm not going to lie to you now and say that I know what that is, I'm afraid, because I don't. But what I can tell you is, though, that in relation to response times to rural areas, we've invested in far more driving courses, qualifications to officers to drive and respond on blue lights than ever before, and you've got far more of those working out of Maldon than you have over recent years. The data in relation to response times to emergency incidents, either urban or sort of town centred, I haven't got that information to hand, I'm afraid, but from my understanding, I don't believe that we're an outlier for where that constantly fails. What I will do, though, and unfortunately I am putting on the spot, Emily, do you have any further sort of background or context to that at all?
Hello everybody. I think the main thing that I would like to give you reassurance around is in the last few months the cities, and because Maldon is lucky because it's counted as Chelmsford and Maldon, we're being prioritised around getting driving permits over other districts. So I've recently moved over from Colchester, and I know that officers working in Colchester and Chelmsford and Maldon are getting more response courses than they've ever had before over other people in the force. So I'm really confident that our response times are in a really good position, especially because we have obviously the officers working here out the hub, and it's not just the response officers, it's also the community officers as well, and a lot of those are response trained as well. So I do think we're in quite a strong position in regards to response times.
But don't get me wrong, Maldon has got a big rural area, and if you're going from a shout here to Bradwell, obviously you want to get somebody there as swiftly as possible, and obviously we have to drive there safely, but as Emily's alluded to, and I put her on the spot because she's just come from the response teams, so she obviously has lived and breathed that sort of pressure really. But I believe we're in a better place than we have been. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Do you want to yes, carry on?
Sorry, it's all right. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so just more in relation to the community engagement and focus, the preventative measures that the team are doing. We work really closely with our partners within the council, and we have dedicated community safety engagement officers. Your officer for Maldon is PC Rosie Smith. She works alongside PC Scott Smith, who's the engagement officer for Chelmsford. The two of them are really busy across your district and have put a lot of really meaningful plans in place now weekly of where we're really engaging with the community. They work really closely with, I've forgotten Les's surname, but our Tri-Services Officer, albeit he's a Bi-Service Officer now, I believe, due to...
Davis.
Thank you, Les Davis. Really closely with him in relation to all sorts of different public safety areas. Fraud awareness, dementia work, fire, preventative measures. Lots of work is done, particularly on the Dengie in those rural areas, to engage with those communities where people are harder to get to be visible in those communities. They work really closely and have a regular event in Purley, but also the team are constantly doing work in and around the busier town centres with those business leaders and community leaders. Obviously, the conflict in the Middle East is ongoing, and I know we touched briefly upon, and I'll come back to the point in relation to non-crime hate incidents, but hate crime is a big focus for the team, and supporting those people from our Jewish community, but also our Muslim community, but people from obviously all sorts of different faiths as well. And we have a number of obviously strategic sites and places of worship across the district, which the team are heavily involved with. Hate crime is down, and our solved rate specifically for hate crime is up, which bucks the national trend, and we're in a really strong position with that. But again, that's a big part of the engagement which the team are dedicated to supporting. The last point, which is shown on the bottom, is the work that we're doing in relation to make safe spaces for girls. Spencer might touch upon this shortly, but he's done some really good work in Chelmsford with a model within Central Park, of where we're really trying to change a lot of attitudes and behaviours in relation to offences of violence and intimidation against women and girls. And that project has now come to Maldon, and a lot of work is going on with the team and Spencer, particularly in the with the Plume School and Promenade Park. And that's a really good, exciting piece of work that the team are doing to really tackle this issue. Thank you. Next slide, please. Just then touching upon the community engagement a bit further. So the harder to reach communities, as I alluded to, the team are really busy with that. Regular events in the public libraries, crime and fire prevention seminars are constantly done. United in Kind, a lot of the work is done with that. And the Don't Drink and Drown initiatives in the obviously the spring and summer months is a big part of the focus with the team, with our other emergency services partners too. Lovely. Next slide, please. Rural crime then. I've talked about some of the other specialist teams that we work with. A team which is really active in your area, which we're very fortunate to have be so busy with us, is the Rural Engagement Team. And they do a lot of work with our farming community. The travelling community is a big piece of work that they have to deal with, and try and put some meaningful actions around. A number of operations are done to tackle with a lot of the offending that goes on in relation to those groups, and lots of meaningful work has been done with that. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as you can see, there's been a lot of events which that team has attended with their very flashy tractor over the last year, in all those different groups which they go and visit, talk to about, give that crime prevention advice, and have those really key links in with that community to make sure that we properly understand the information intelligence of what's going on in those areas, so that we can properly drive this crime down. Next slide, please. Organised crime groups then. Chelmsford and Maldon has a number of scored organised crime groups and gangs, for want of a better word, which do operate in your area. And the Maldon town team specifically have worked incredibly hard to really drive this down, and have had some fantastic results. A lot of that work is shared on social media, and I would encourage people to try and look at their pages if you can, with some of the work that they do. But we've had a number of successes and really good arrests and prosecutions that have followed in relation to drug dealers that have been caught, a number of businesses that have been linked to that. There is lots of work ongoing which has been done within recent weeks, which I can't really talk to you about in any further detail at the moment, but that will come out in due course, and will be a really good thing to share with you, because that will have a really positive impact in relation to this issue. And it's mainly in relation to drug dealing, but violent crime, which is supported alongside organised crime groups and drug dealers, is obviously quite prevalent, and the team are dedicated to really driving that down. We've seen some good results with this, with the arrests and prosecutions that have followed. Violence without injury has fallen, as has violence with injury, as recorded offences and crimes. So we've had some really good results in relation to this. Next slide, please. So we've had some really good success in Maldon, and things that we should be proud of and celebrate. A number of significant arrests have been done by the team. 540 arrests for the calendar year from a variety of offences. The solved rate for non-victim related crimes, so that's state-based crimes such as drug dealing, possession of weapon offences, has increased, but that's because the team are proactively going out there, targeting those offenders and getting those good results. So as much as that might seem quite alarming on paper, actually that's a really positive and proactive step that the team are taking to properly target these people and deal with it. Because if we didn't do that, nobody would know about it. So as much as that data shows that, it's been a really positive step from the team, and obviously a number of the images at the bottom there show the good work that they've been doing. Next slide, please. And there we come to it. And I've waffled on, I know, but there we be. Any questions, Chair, or from anybody else at all?
Yeah, Councillor Hayward.
I'm going to go in. I've got a load of questions. Always have. First question, I'm going to start. Obviously, we're talking about antisocial behaviour. I'm just looking at your chart on here, and it's something which was pointed out to me. The solved outcomes and the solved rates. On everything on antisocial, there is no figures for it. Have we got no figures for that? To say what's been solved, and that's not just on Maldon, that's on the whole lot. So, and that's the only one that hasn't got any figures on it.
Yeah, I do apologise. I can't give you an answer to that because I'm afraid I don't know it. I'm surprised that's not on there, and it should be there. I'm sure we'd be able to find it and get back to you with that information.
No, that's lovely.
Yeah.
But going on to the antisocial, it's something that's actually come up actually today. Wendy Stamp actually passed it on to me to bring up tonight. It's come up from a resident in Burnham themselves. There's been quite a bit of antisocial behaviour around the train station. It's come up on a post. Obviously, you get Facebook and all that. It's all on there. And really want to know what we can do to actually try and tackle this. And including with the antisocial, we have heard from different residents about the fact there's a lot more hard drugs going on around the youngsters in Burnham. So this is really quite a concern for us. That this needs to be tackled, you know, because obviously young children, these are youngsters that are possibly at senior school and things like this, so this is something we really need something done about. And on that, it's the visibility. You said about visibility earlier on within the areas. I'm a Dengie councillor, so I'm really passionate about the Dengie, and I don't think we get as much officers out on the Dengie as you do in the Maldon areas and things like that. So do we know how many patrols we get out there, just on a regular patrol, not coming out for problems, but, you know, just basically patrolling around Burnham and all the little villages? Because I live in one of the villages, I very rarely see a police car out there unless it's on blue lights coming out. So it's just something I feel that we are lacking on the Dengie. And obviously with this at the moment with Burnham, when I'm saying antisocial behaviour, it's revolving. What's come up today, it's around the train station area, and this is from youngsters and things going on there. So more patrols out our way are needed.
Certainly. Okay, just to cover off a couple of those points then. So in relation to the drug dealing issues in Burnham on Crouch, the really important thing with this, and I stress this to everybody, is as much as that might be on social media, have we been told about it? So reporting is vital. So that's recorded, it goes through the system so that we can then put a real response around it. And not just us, to the council as well. There are methods obviously to report to both of us. The more you report, the more attention it will get and the better response that you will get. Of course, you have told us about it now, and we will take that away and make sure that something is done about it. But I just implore you as elected members to please make sure that you push that message. If you don't report it, we don't know about it and we can't do anything about it. Of course, the team are proactive and trying to go out there to try and do things. But if you can tell us that at 7 o'clock on a Friday night at Burnham train station, you've got a group of drug dealers in hoodies, well, brilliant. My Maldon town team will go there in plain clothes. They'll put an operation together to try and target this, to make sure that we get them caught and we do something about it. That reporting is vitally important. Another point, just in relation to Burnham on Crouch, and particularly youth that are offending. My child and young person team, and I've got 4 dedicated officers for that, are ever so good and got great links in with the schools and the colleges across the area. And if we get a piece of CCTV, which we'll have from the train station, chances are that they'll go to one of the schools, and the officers will quite easily, with their links, be able to go in there and identify that person for us. Then we can put plans in place and we can make sure that we can do something really tangible to get a meaningful result around it. We have had some success with drug dealers in Burnham on Crouch and the surrounding areas around that immediate vicinity. Again, I can't go into too much detail with you at the moment, I'm afraid, because that was within recent weeks, but that will come out in due course, and we have had some good activity there. But if you're telling me this recent incident has happened, of course, we need to know about it and put some plans in place to deal with it. So we will take that and make sure that that's done.
This is more recent, obviously.
Sure.
I do believe the drug one has been reported as well. So obviously, you know, it's something we know it's happening. So
yeah,
you know, you've got to look after our children, really.
Of course you do. And you know, as a parent of 2 young teenage boys that live in the county, I want to make sure they grow up in a society where they're kept safe too. So I totally understand that. The team will put those plans in place to try and deal with that and try and catch them. But we need to know about it, and it needs to be reported. If people don't want to put their name to that and they want to do it anonymously, Crime Stoppers is a brilliant charity, which if people want to report something anonymous, then please push out the importance of that network as well. So either to ourselves, to the council, or to Crime Stoppers is a great method of reporting really good information intelligence that we can work with. Coming on to your next point, which is in relation to the patrols in the rural areas, I am confident that my team, particularly the engagement officers, will be in those rural villages with the Tri-Services officers, Les Davies, at least 2 or 3 times a week. I won't put you on the spot to say which village it is, but please share it with us. And if we need to do something, you know, a bit more impactful to make sure that we have that day of action and something more frequently, of course we will do that. We do have finite resources though, and we do have to respond to where the hotspot locations are. And as per that mapping that we obviously put up to the screen from the beginning of the year, majority of that was around the Maldon town area and the Burnham on Crouch area. So by default, the patrol strategy would indicate that the team are going to concentrate those as the outliers. However, of course, we need to support those rural communities as well in those other areas and have that footprint there. But please share it with us, talk to us about it, and we'll make sure that we can.
Yeah, I think it's not just one village. I'm out in Mayland, but there's lots of little villages right the way around. And yes, we know the bigger towns like Burnham, Southminster, and then we all have our problems. But even just to occasionally have just a patrol through, it just, like with the speeding and things like that, just having a car go through, it all helps.
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter if there's a problem or not a problem. It's just to have a visibility, which is what you were saying earlier. I think we need visibility in these little villages, certainly, as well as the towns.
Yeah, we will take that away and make sure that we follow that up. Again, I'm not going to delve too much into politics because we do obviously remain impartial, but the new government have stressed that they want to invest in neighbourhood policing. So plans are in place to see that change. We're still not quite sure how that's going to look, but the suggestion may be that certain areas have a dedicated officer as a specific point of contact. If that's a welcomed idea, then you know, that's something that may be on the horizon that hopefully might make those improvements. However, you have got that team and those dedicated engagement officers that have got that clear plan and those responsibilities to do a lot of these functions already. But we do certainly take your point on board. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I completely echo what Councillor Hayward's saying about the need to see police in the villages. And I know that you're not going to rock up and that moment there'll be a crime and you can solve it. I know it doesn't work like that. But I think I did once see a patrol coming into Tollsbury. So we've had, what's it called, Coffee with the Cops. We've had that. And I've seen one patrol coming into Tollsbury, and maybe I knew about another one. when there has been a patrol, obviously not in advance perhaps, but afterwards, would you be able to share something so that we can post and show residents this has happened? Because people say, oh, the police never come. Maybe you do, and based on what you've just said, maybe you do. But it's a very clandestine operation if you do, because I've never seen them.
No,
Thank you.
that's fine. I totally take it on board, and I'm not going to make sweeping promises to you now that I can't deliver. But certainly, if you know, obviously that is the feeling, we'll make sure that we put improvements in to deal with that. What I would say is, please talk to us, report it to the community policing team and the council to say that that's how you feel, and make sure that we can put those plans in place. In relation to sort of figures to say where we've been and when, a routine patrol, we wouldn't be able to give you that information, I'm afraid. But in relation to engagement events such as Coffee with Cops, Let's Talk events, which are advertised and publicised on the websites and things like that, which are done in certain areas, we do have specific engagement return forms which we'd be able to share with you to say, yeah, we've done this many events in Maldon, we've done this many events in Wood and Water, and we'd be able to obviously share that with you in due course. But we'll certainly take away these points and make sure that we cover that off where we can. Sorry, Chair.
Just come back on that. So you say that it's not possible to share afterwards that an area has been patrolled. It seems a shame, because I think that's something that I could post to the village and could communicate to the village and say the police are out there. Look, they came here on Tuesday.
Yeah, so what I know from the knowledge I have of how the teams work and the tangible data that they put into the system, if you like, those events that we talked about, I know that we have return forms for that, which we'd be able to share with you. But in relation to, for example, the response team that work out of Maldon, that have driven through a village, done a patrol, done this, that and the other, I'm afraid that information probably would be done on GPS, but isn't something that I'm familiar with, that we're able to withdraw easily from a system, I'm afraid. However, I will go away and take the fact that you want that visibility in your area, in your town, and to make sure that we share with you and we publicise on our own pages the fact that we're doing that and visible in your area. All right. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Morley, we had...
Thank you. Just quick, and just a question about the theft figures. Theft from person is up and shoplifting is up, and other theft is down. How do you categorise what's other? How do you sort of equate to those sort of figures?
So this is really difficult, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to know the ins and outs of it all. Shoplifting is obviously what it is, shoplifting. Theft of a motor vehicle is obviously when a whole car is taken. Theft from a motor vehicle when it's broken into. Vehicle interference, which again is classified under another theft type offence, is where somebody's tampered with a car to try and steal something. Theft from a person could be a pickpocket or something such as that. A theft other could be just a random item of furniture or something is stolen from a front garden or a home, something like that.
When you say theft other,
yeah, and then you've got other things like theft of pedicles. All of these additional offences are recorded and the statistics are there. If you want a full breakdown of those, we can provide it for you, hopefully with a bit more context around what is what. But yeah, that data and the amount that is thrown at us, it can be difficult to analyse at times, I'm afraid. But yeah, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Spencer.
Yeah, so I'm going to come back to the shoplifting, because Spencer Club will remember I raised it previously, so I did realise that we were having a problem in some areas, and one area was the Blackwater Retail Park. Yeah. And people tend to see it as a victimless crime sometimes, don't they, when they're big shops, but the truth is, I know that with some of those shops, how many hours the staff get that week those figures are taken off when things are taken from some of those shops. I'm not sure that from the information that I've just heard on the ground, I know that you're working with businesses, there's some pretty full-scale, it's shoplifting to order where they're taking whole loads of stuff. It's not like they're picking up one little item. These are instances where they'll clear off a shelf or whatever. And I'm not sure those businesses are always reporting it still. And I just wondered what the nature of the work is that you're doing with them. Are you actively going into them and trying to encourage them to let you know about these things? Because I'm not sure they always are. Just a question, really.
Yes, certainly. So we, as a team, take shoplifting incredibly seriously because we don't deem it as a victimless crime. Those businesses don't deserve to be treated in this way. And the amount of abuse that a lot of those members of staff get, those security store staff get, you know, we don't tolerate and we take incredibly seriously. I'm not going to name the businesses now because it's not right and proper to do, but there are those companies which don't necessarily care and are happy to take a loss. So we do find that a lot of safes with perfumes in and other really expensive items contained within stores in drawers beneath shelves and whatnot are left unlocked. People go in there, pilfer them and steal that property away, and it's never reported to us, and they're happy to just run at a loss. To us, that is absolutely crazy, and we proactively try and target those people to make sure that we catch them. We then go back to that store and say, do you realise that this person has just stolen £300 worth of perfume from you? And sometimes the attitude coming back isn't as great as we would hope. However, we are working with them. Sergeant Christian Denning and his business crime team do lots of work with these businesses, trying to help them around target hardening and store improvements, such as a lot of the supermarkets where the self-checkouts are immediately next to the entrance and exits, whereas the tills are deeper down into the store. So when that member of staff is behind the till, that person can just sneak out having pretended to pay at the self-checkout and things like that. We see those types of incidents all the time, and that's why we have those dedicated officers to try and help those businesses to turn that around. It is an issue, it is an outlier for Maldon, but we are trying to deal with it.
Yeah. Just to come back quickly, one of the things that concerns me about it is particularly, for example, on the retail park and in that area, a lot of those stores don't have any security, and it's actually the shop assistants who run out, and that to me is a concern for their safety. So I'm just glad to hear that you're working with them, because that's good. Thank you.
Absolutely. And again, I come back to the point, apologies, Chair, but as elected members that work with these businesses, please encourage them to report it to us. If we don't know about it, we can't put those plans in place to support them. Of course, we will proactively and walk around those places and try and talk to them, but reporting crime is everything to give us that accurate information intelligence picture of exactly what's going on in your area. Thank you, Chair.
And, well, finally, as we're hopefully approaching warmer weather, Hoe Mill Lock is going to become yet again a sort of centre for sort of action. Is that somewhere you've got very much in your sights as to keep an eye on?
Very much so. And the important part for our team as the community policing team is to project plans that's 6 months ahead. So, for example, we know that Halloween's always a really busy time for us. We know Christmas is a really busy time for us. So constantly we're planning ahead to make sure that we've got plans in place. So we know that that is an outlier for antisocial behaviour. Working with the council and the team, we make sure that we've got those plans in place to try and deal with that effectively to prevent it from starting. So yes, if you see something that you're not happy with, please talk to us, let us know, and we'll make sure that those plans are adapted, but we have got plans in place to deal with it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Moore,
Sorry, just one last thing. I remember last time we were here, in particular with young girls, are we any nearer to getting better street lighting or brighter areas? Because it must be pretty frightening for them. Yeah,
I do understand that. I'm afraid I would divert to Spencer in relation to a lot of work that's done with it. However, we are aware of that as a concern. We obviously support Spencer with the recommendations as the Public Protection Manager around those improvements that we can go to. Yeah, I do understand that. What I would encourage, again, yourselves to share is the applications through the PFCC in relation to the Minerva project for the Commonplace application and Street Safe, which is another app, is that if somebody feels vulnerable in a certain area at a certain night, there is a whole map of the district which they can drop a pin on and say, I feel vulnerable in this area because it's got really poor street lighting, because the car park closes at this time of night and I don't finish work until an hour later. Or I'm a nurse and I don't finish my shift till this time, and at that point, all my streets are turned off. Encourage people to use that, because that data is then really something that we can work with to put all sorts of plans in, working closely with Spencer to make those improvements. So street safe and also commonplace is another application through the Minerva project that we do with Nottingham Trent University and the Crime Commissioner, to make sure that people can talk to us and properly look at that map and say, here, vulnerable for this reason. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Right, anybody else? Inspector Gold, thank you very much for a most informative report. Thank you for coming. Where will you be moving on to?
So I'm very happy to report that I've been promoted. So I'm working out of headquarters. I'll be a Chief Inspector from Monday. However, it's been a brilliant 2 years with yourselves as a council, and obviously my colleagues over in Chelmsford too. And I thank you for the work we've done together. Okay, well, all the very best for the future. I'm sure that Inspector Holmes will step into your shoes. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good. Right, so move on to agenda item 7, Maldon District Community Safety Partnership Update. The reports you'll find on pages 9 to 32. And Mr. Clark, all yours. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. We'll do as we've done for the last few meetings, assuming that members have had an opportunity to read the report in advance. So at the request of the Chair and Vice Chair, I've done a few slides to just give a flavour of the work we've been doing. Before I go on to the slides, I will just refer to 3.11. We're at the stage of the year where we set our priorities. You'll see that we'll be considering the priorities on the 13th of March, which is only a couple of weeks away. It's actually going to be presented to the One Maldon District, because we have a clash of One Maldon District and the Responsible Authorities Group. So we'll be doing that. And you'll see that we've already done what's called the Crime Risk Matrix scores for Maldon. And this is where we look at how we score crime and the impact on the public. And you'll see there, I'll just reference to those, the highest concerns for Maldon were domestic abuse, high and medium risk, death and serious injury caused by unlawful driving, rape, trafficking of drugs and domestic abuse low risk. So when you take those into consideration and what we can actually do as a partnership, I wouldn't anticipate the current 5 priorities to change too much. There might be some slight changes on the narratives. So what I'll do now is I'll go on to the slides, which we've got up on the screen there. So if we can go on to the second slide, please, Tara. And I'm just going to go through each one of the priorities and just give members a flavour of what we do around each priority. As Inspector just flagged, we do a lot of work around serious violence. I actually sit on the Serious Violence Board for Essex, and one of our duties which come into place 2 years ago is that we need to do an Essex Joint Strategic Needs Assessment. Fortunately, we as a district don't have to do that because it's delivered by the Violence and Vulnerability Unit. So they have a data scientist who produces that for us. And each month I receive a monthly Power BI data input. As of today, Maldon sits at 0.23 offences per 1,000 population, which is almost the lowest in Essex. So we have a really low rate of serious violence. What we also do around reducing reoffending is we work with the probation service to deliver community payback, and the various locations across Maldon districts, such as cemeteries and churchyards, benefit from the community payback service. We did at the last meeting speak about prison capacity issues. It was quite current at the last meeting because I think we were on the second tranche of early prison releases, whereby prisoners have only served 40% of their sentences. We're still meeting strategically around that. I think one thing we can say is the anticipated capacity of 18 months I don't think is going to work. So I think it's something that we'll need to consider again in the very near future. So we'll be waiting for a directive from the government on that particular issue. And we also do effective engagement. I'm not going to duplicate anything which Inspector Girdleston said, but things like drink spiking, cycle marking and burglary prevention. And you'll see, I have mentioned the work the business crime team do, particularly in the high street and the retail park. And I can assure you that all of those premises have not only been visited by the business crime team, but also by the town team, who are regularly involved in that. So on to the second slide priority, which is driving down antisocial behaviour in public places. Pleased you mentioned Burnham earlier, Councillor. One of the things we are in conversation with is with the Essex County Council Youth Service about doing some targeted outreach in Burnham. So that's something we've already discussion about, because of not just antisocial behaviour, but the issues you brought up around drugs as well. So it's not always a police response which will solve these matters. Sometimes it's youth workers working with these younger people to see what the issues are. So we do patrol the hotspots. Burnham's been a bit of a hotspot recently. Home Mill Lock, we're aware of the issues there and the multi-agency approaches we do there. We have actually, has been some fencing installed in that area,
no, that's worked,
which will hopefully resolve some of the issues, but we'll also be looking at that. And we also do things like nights of action. So this Saturday, the team is out in town centre, community safety team, the community engagement team, the police, South Essex Parking Partnership, doing some joint working around the town centre. That plays a key role. The community engagement team provide lots of reassurance. So it's not just about seeing cops in the villages. You'll regularly see the community engagement team in their vans patrolling those areas. And we also continue to manage our antisocial behaviour issues using the powers that we have. The team are all undertaking ASB case review training over the next week or so. So that's being done by the Police Commissioner's Office. So we have a better understanding of what we can do around case reviews if and when they meet the threshold. And as always with antisocial behaviour, it's always good to have some diversionary projects going on. Two of the new ones which have just been commissioned by Active Essex. The Active Essex Foundation is Box Smart in Burnham and Southminster. So that's aged around 14 to 16-year-old young people, and trying to focus a lot of girls into that as well. So that's one of the new ones which have just been introduced in the last few months. On to priority 3, around identifying and supporting vulnerable people. Lots of focus on domestic abuse, lots of focus on things like social isolation and suicide prevention, and quite a bit of work in schools. So I've been working in the schools targeting hate crime and doing some support around that. One hot topic at the moment is preventing violent extremism. I chair the Essex Prevent Delivery Group. We were due to meet with the Home Office yesterday to have our duty assurance, i.e. Home Office benchmarking, but that was cancelled at very short notice. But pleased to report that with the documents we've submitted, we're probably going to be exceeded in all areas there. So what we've done since the last year is produce what's called a situational risk assessment and a partnership plan for the whole of Essex. When I say the whole of Essex, excluding Southend and Thurrock, because they're unitaries, they have their own prevent duty. And the one thing which was outstanding for us last year was about communications. And if you recall at the last meeting, we spoke about the summer of unrest, where we had lots of issues following the Southport incident. What we've put into place to mitigate that is we've started what's called the Essex Permissive Environments Group. So that will meet as and when we get things like that happening in the future. So if it's just local to Maldon and the group will meet. If it's a Essex-wide thing, it will meet as an Essex-wide group. We do loads of work around education and events, things like healthy relationships, crucial crew, dementia and friendly communities. More recently, we've done a mindfulness event. Luke and the team's doing some work with partners on slips and falls for older people and seated exercise. And in December, we also worked with Open Road on their SOS bus to look at some of the respiratory issues which were swamping the NHS at the time. Safe, well and secure, which we do with the fire service. So Les Davis from the fire service works with us along that. This year we done work in Heybridge and the Dendy villages. We always do this based on data. So we'll wait for the data sets to come out this year and do some more safe and well secure visits. They're really good because not only have you got uniformed staff going around the areas, but you can quite often spot isolated people. And the reason we do that, I mean, going back about 2 or 3 years ago, we had those 3 fatal fires in Maldon district in the space of 18 months. So it's really important because you can sometimes identify some people who are socially isolated, who are not necessarily known to services, but they might be known to families and local people. Violence against women and girls, and I'm going to do a little bit of a focus on this after this slide. Lots of work we do around that. So SEPDAB is Southend Essex and Thurrock Domestic Abuse Board. They do loads of Essex-wide campaigns like the Reflect campaign. We're working on a women's safety project and we've been doing some focus groups in Maldon very soon. Inspector Gertelson spoke about Operation Minerva, which is the work we've done across Essex, working with Nottingham Trent University. That's now been expanded slightly. We've got new data sets for that, where we look at perceptions of crime as well, which I think is important, particularly for districts like Maldon, because the fear of crime, as Councillor Morley pointed out earlier, the fear of crime by things such as lighting can have a really big impact. It doesn't have to actually be an actual crime. So that's really good. And we're also working with Nottingham Trent with that same mapping overlay. They're going to do the same for us for antisocial behaviour across the whole of Essex. So we'll be able to have that same mapping across Essex, not just police data, it will also be council data and data from registered social landlords. So that'll give a much truer picture. I put Ask Angela on here because you're probably aware of the Ask Angela campaign where you'll go into a licensed premises. So if you're a female and you feel vulnerable, you'll go up to the bar and ask for Angela. So when we done the work on Saturday night, a number of the bars in Maldon got asked for Angela. Most of them passed, which is really good. So most of them worked really well. So that's really good that people are aware of that. And you know, the young lady who was asking for Angela was one of our town team persons, who was on most occasions taken to a secure place within the licensed premises, and it worked really good. Make Space for Girls, which is referred to, my favourite project. Last night we done a feedback session on our second consultation with Chalmer Valley High School, and so the third one is the Plume, where we'll do the session for that. And what a great bunch of young people we've been working with. I think I've said in my 37 years work, it's probably been my most rewarding project, you know, because it's really seeing these young people, not only how their confidence improves. The group I saw yesterday I hadn't seen since July, and I think they've grown a foot since I last saw them. So they're really, really good. On the next slide, I've just put a little bit, and I think I spoke about this last meeting, of how we've done these workshop structures, working with the young people. And it involved asking lots of questions about spaces, how they use spaces, what they want from public realm. And then the second session was actually walking around Promenade Park, looking at it, look at the spaces they use, what they don't use, and what they might use. And then finally, we went on to how it could impact and how we could do an event for them. If we go on to the next slide, please. That's one of the areas which we looked at in terms of getting the young people coming up with some ideas. And you'll see things like circular social seating. That's a real big thing. And swings. Young people love swings, and lights. So the lights low really come up on the thing. And the next slide shows some of the recommendations of what we wanted from that. So young people really like hangout spaces. And we've got to remember the focus of the Maldon consultation was to look at our skate parks. And more importantly, to make sure that the skate parks were inclusive for all users. So I think I've said at the last meeting, if you go across every skate park in England, 82% of the users will be men and boys, and we need to shift that. Having those conversations were great because they don't have to be just for skateboards. They can be for things like roller skating. They can be for the little bike things as well. So that they come up with some really good ideas. So on the next slide, I've just updated where we really are with this project now. So we worked with a charity, Make Space for Girls. The consultants were called Social Place, the two ladies, Julia and Olivia. So that consultation for Maldon is complete. The report's published. Pleased to let you know we actually won a national award for this consultation. So last month we went to London to the Thornton Education Trust, and we won an award for the free consultations which we've done, Inspiring Future Generations Long-Term Youth Project. It's also we've been recognised by the Police Commissioner. Has agreed to fund a learning event in spring. So what we'll do is amalgamate the free consultations together and do a learning event across Essex. Also spoken to the students about design ideas. We'll do a feedback session like we did last night, so they can feed back to elected members, the parents, the schools. Really had a really nice email from the school I worked with yesterday saying that tomorrow all of the students involved with the project are having lunch with their head teacher to recognise the work that they've done, and they'll also be doing assemblies to younger year groups as well. So they're so infused and confident by what they've done. So really good example of community participation. It's quite sad that when you speak to the young people, they actually say it's nice to be asked in the first place. But so it's really good that we've started this now. So what we're going to do? So they're looking for things like hangout seating. They really like the canvas shelter in Promenade Park. So we're thinking of something like one at the edge of the skate park with a type of sail, a canvas type sail, is something we're looking at. And looking at lighting, not just bright lighting, even things like fairy lights, mood lighting, etc., to make the area. And also really keen on the urban art project, which we're going to refresh on the toilet block in Promenade Park. So they're going to be involved in that. So the skate park designs, so Bend Creek, who had a approved contractor to do that. We've got really inclusive designs now, which is what we wanted. They're suitable for all users, not just experienced skaters, new users, transition users. And we've done lots of engagement events. So we've worked with students, we've worked with the skate community. So we've been out to Burnham, we've been out to West Maldon Community Centre, and also the Promenade Park, where we've had quite a few skaters turn up and look at the designs. So not just students and young people, but also the skate community. And the long-term goal is we get a better use of our green spaces, also improve mental health of young people. Remember the pandemic, everyone flooded to the green spaces, so we know that they love them. And also with our public health hats on, see a reduction in teenage obesity. On to priority 4. And I'm not going to mention too much around this because I think Inspector Girdleston has mentioned everything I've listed on this one. Yeah, no, that's good. But it just shows that we actually do work together, So I don't think there's any real benefit in me saying any more on that one. Priority 5, again, the community engagement team do loads of work around this. TrueCam. We've benefited this year from Operation Dial, although we don't have enough antisocial behaviour in the community. We do get antisocial behaviour on the roads. So we've been funded to do additional patrols there. The TrueCam laser captures from April to November, I think we've got the December figures now, are just topping 3,500. And we also support our community speed watches and Operation Sidewalk. There's the Vision Zero message which we're pushing. and the education work we're doing with South Essex Parking Partnership, the Sacred Road Partnership and the Fire Service. Also doing a bit of focus on the Lower Burnham Road, and which is very data-led. On the next slide, just really saying what, as a result of those TrueCam things, what we do is we have the conditional offer. Most people take up the speed awareness course because that's the easiest way out. Some go to prosecution. We've also accredited officers are now trained in traffic management as well, so that's been added to their powers of accreditation. And in some circumstances, recently we've used antisocial behaviour legislation to do community protection warnings and notices for antisocial parking. So that's a new one for us. And sharing information on pavement obstructions with the community policing team, which again is something that comes up quite regularly. I think my final slide is a nice little map there of the work we've done through TrueCam captures. You'll see that July is our busiest month. There's a bit of a dip in December, probably because, as you know, but we've got, I think it's two or three more additional staff now. I think we're fully recruited the community engagement team now, so we've got a full access to staff. So there'll be more TrueCam done in the community as a result of that. That's my final slide. So that's a very quick whiz through what we do, hopefully, and pass back to the chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. With regards to the Promenade Park, in fact, the Strategic Assets Working Group was discussing this only yesterday, and I think I'm right in saying that all these aspects that Mr. Clark's put forward have already are included in the plans going forward. Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks. Good. Councillor Spencer, you want to?
Yes, thank you, Chair. With regard to make space for girls, and I think I mentioned this when you mentioned it before, Spencer, but on the North Heybridge Garden Suburb, we've been told by Vistry that part of the community space will be a dedicated, exactly as you're describing, with area seating for girls. And I just thought, it was just a thought really, two thoughts I've had about this. One is that with our own planning policy team, whether it's worth you, because we're currently writing an LDP, and again, with regard to policy, it'd be great to have something in there around ensuring that where we've got, you know, open green spaces, community facilities, that kind of thing, that work is maybe included in that, and so that we can reach out to developers in that way to include those things. The other thing that, and I don't know if that'd be possible, but it's certainly something we need to discuss. The other thing is actually working with parishes, because I mean, I'm thinking, I'm chair of Heybridge Parish Council as well, and currently, and it would be lovely if we had something like that at Heybridge, where we're currently, and I can see Councillor Swoonsall nodding at me, we've currently got, I think it's 20 odd youths, isn't it, turning up regularly at Plantation Hall, but also a number of young women where we've built the extension on the front are turning up, young girls are turning up and sort of hanging out there quite regularly. So it'd be really nice to have some outdoor spaces that are suitable for them. So I just think maybe working with the parishes going forward would be quite a positive thing, because a lot of them have got green space that they could look at projects like this on. So it's just that really. Thank you.
Yeah, that's music to my ears, Councillor Spenceley. I mean, what I will do is I'll make sure that the planners get an invite to the Essex Learning event. At last night's event, we had Heather Gurdon, who's the heads up the designing out crime team for Essex Police, and very, very knowledgeable in designing out crime, and we're going to be doing a lot of work around that. But I think it's certainly something going forward we can replicate and move out going to the parishes. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Members. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really interested to see that it looks like you might be able to do something about pavement parking, which is just such a pain. It's really the police that have the powers to deal with it, and obviously by the time, with all respect, by the time you get there, the person will have driven away because they only popped into the shop for 2 minutes, and then they're superseded by the next person who does it for 2 minutes, and so on, resulting that the entire shop front is permanently parked over. that's in my ward. I'm sure it's everywhere. What can you tell us a bit more about what you can do? What would be the fine to somebody? What would be the outcomes for them? Thank you.
I think it's initially the sort of awareness and reporting of that, and if it's a regular occurrence, as you quite rightly say, if someone is fully blocking the footpath, it's a policing matter. What we tend to do in residential areas, which are where we get a majority of our complaints, it's usually words of warning in advance, isn't it? So usually the PCSOs or another officer will go to that particular premises and give words of advice. In most occasions, that's quite effective. If that isn't effective, we have to look at what other powers we can use to do that. So it's a reporting mechanism. So if the community engagement officers are out in the community and they spot it on a regular basis, or if we get contacts from either residents or elected members, we can just see how we can escalate that. But having that initial conversation is always the best course of action. Similarly with things like antisocial behaviour, actually speaking to people in the first instance can be quite effective way of mediation.
Thank you. Members, anybody else have anything they want to, questions they want to ask? Right, well thank you for that, Spencer. That was most interesting and illuminating, as ever. So, that being the case, moving on to item 8. Any other items of business that the chairperson of the committee decides are urgent, and you'll be no doubt delighted to know that I have none. And therefore, I declare this meeting closed at 20:56. Thank you very much, members.